Howdy YouTube, and welcome to another episode of the Gunman. So today we're going to be answering a question or a comment that I had in one of my previous videos. So recently I've done like a big video series on one of these patrols where I took you right through from start to finish. And basically these days we don't use the liquid paint stripper anymore. We've moved over to a mechanically removing the existing paint. So we go with the wire brushes, wire wheels, and then orbital sanders, right? So we start with the 80 grit and then we go 120 grit and then we do the edges. Why do we do that instead of paint stripper? So the first and foremost is a very simple reason, health and safety, right? So I was getting to the point where it felt like, and I'm talking, I'd be at home at night time at like 8:30 or whatever it is, lying in bed, and it felt like I had like a 200 kilogram gorilla sitting on my chest. That's what it felt like, right? It was really painful, and as one of my old friends always used to say, always listen to your body. That's my body saying, hey, stop, whatever you're doing, like stop it. So I listened to my body and I just I put my foot down. It got really bad and I just got to the point, I'm like, man, if they do one more of these, and I'm out. I walked out one day because it was just getting too much for me. And look, my boss is that cool that he was happy to change the procedure. Now, the funniest part about the whole thing is that the reason that we probably didn't do it earlier is because we had some reservations about doing the way that we do now. Like, you'd think potentially you can put orbital sander marks into it, and yes, you can. It doesn't mean you have to. There's obviously the correct technique and method of doing it. And we also thought it might be slower because sometimes it feels a little bit slower because it's you got to sit there for a little bit longer on the orbital sander. But when you take the time that you don't have to mask it up, all the cleanup that you don't have to do, it also doing it our current way, it's cheaper. So a box of sandpaper is a lot cheaper than for, I think it was five cans of paint stripper, and they're rocking at about $50 a pop. So you're talking $300, which again, it's not massive money. The job is the job, but I guess it would add up over time. There's a few other reasons, right? So there's a few other things that are worth pointing out. This is one of those things that may not even be in your SOP or your standard operating procedure for a for a bare metal paint job. So what can happen is if you use paint stripper and you don't neutralize that acid, you can get like blisters and bubbles coming up from underneath the paint. A lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that for the longest time. We had one come back, and I think that we ended up having to maybe just redo the bonnet because that's where it was coming up. But I read it in a comment on Facebook, which I'm no longer on anymore because good old, AI kicked me off Instagram and Facebook, which I do have another Instagram account. Just that's on a little tangent, but sorry, we'll get back to the point. If you do not neutralize that acid, and again, where do you get this information? Where do you find it from? Because PPG will say it's not our paint stripper, right? And when I did read one of their procedures, it just said paint strip or remove paint, and then it skipped over to the next thing, which was like what was it, metal conditioning or something like that. So it didn't actually say anything about neutralizing that acid. But again, I've read it in a few comments and I'm like, that's exactly what I've seen in the past. I have seen that, and most people I know don't do that step. And the other thing is, like, you're talking bare metal, man. There's things that I do and don't like doing with bare metal. I don't like touching it with my fingers because I don't like getting potential oils and moisture and stuff like that. I treat my bare metal with a lot of respect, right? Because of, like I say, the potential of these blisters and bubbles coming out. It's quite high. And yeah, like putting soapy water on fresh bare metal, like that doesn't really calculate with me. Like, I don't know, like maybe I've heard some people say demineralized water doesn't have the minerals in it, so it's not going to rust. I'm like, that's still a lot of faith that you're putting in that, when you're talking full bare metal resprays on the cards. If you get that wrong, right, I'd prefer not to. My way, strip it back to bare metal, metal clean it. That's what I do the metal cleaner, then bang, straight on with etch primer. And I don't even leave it, like the longest I'll ever leave it is overnight, bang, one night. And then another thing you've got to be careful of is only ever do priming on your bare metal in a warm spray booth. And one thing about like a spray environment is like if it's a highly humid day, you actually want to give it sort of 5 to 10 minutes, because if there's humidity in the air, it takes, like, first actually the humidity will raise and then it'll come down as you dry the water or the moisture out of the air. So, you know, look, you shouldn't really have any issues in a spray booth. But yeah, there's all these little things to sort of consider. So another thing is, you know, technique. When it comes to, that's one thing I wanted to touch on, is technique. So you can definitely do it this way. And I've actually found they come up much better the way that we do them now. It actually is much faster too, because like I say, you don't have to mask the whole car up. You've not got this messy paint strip you got to clean up, you know. But another key point is, so at the start, like I probably, yeah, like I was just as guilty as the other lads. Maybe my technique wasn't quite as bad, but I wasn't policing it as heavy as probably what I should have, because at the start I was just like, man, I just need to get away from that paint stripper, whatever it takes, right? But after a while, I ended up finding, like I treat spray painting like somewhat of a science project, right? I follow the scientific method. So what I found is that you'll get the best performance with your orbital sand if you hold it flat, right? So hold it, most of it, obviously, if the panel's flat, hold it flat. But you can get deceived into thinking that, oh, you're going faster when you edge it up, because it's like you sort of say peeling, you know, you're peeling the paint back, if that makes sense, because you're getting that little bit done faster. But if you hold it flat, it feels like, oh, it takes forever, but you will actually get that section done faster. But what you need to do is like hold a bit of pressure onto it. And I can probably do it over here because it's got plastic on it, but you can actually sort of mildly move that panel. I don't know if you can see that. You can actually push it in so that you're actually moving the panel a bit. It's gonna spring back within reason. You're not smashing it in too hard. So the panel can take a bit of pressure, right? You don't have to be too worried about that. What you do have to be worried about is getting the sander up on the edge. There was at one point you could actually see it in the metal. You can see these little rings, and then when you'd paint it, you'd get these you know, ripples in it. And another thing that you would get when you'd paint strip, because obviously we're not painting or paint stripping the insides, right? So you've got to mask up a strip around here, right? You've got to go in an inch or two off the edge of the panel, or you'll make a total mess out of it. What would happen is you'd paint strip it, you'd clean all the paint stripper off, you'd still have to sand it. So like, it's not like you're even eliminating a step, you're right? So what would happen is you'd look down the side and I could see them. You know, obviously where you've sanded it, it sands slightly uneven, and you can actually see those bits where you've masked. So there's that. And again, this is another little thing here. This is one thing that's worth pointing out, is that, so obviously you can hold your sander flat on a panel like that, but you can't always hold it flat, right? So sometimes you do actually have to lift it up on an edge. But as you can do it as long as you keep it moving. So you've got to think about the way that you're using that tool. Again, is it the method or is it the execution? That's what you've got to ask yourself. And if you're always holding that sander up on the edge on the flat surfaces, well, that's the execution. It's not the method. Like, it can be done, and I know that it can be done because I do it on the regular. But yeah, part of my job is obviously just keeping an eye on the boys, and if they're doing that technique not quite as good, then I've got to point it out to them. And I only have to point it out again. Sometimes you just got to remind them. It's not a big deal. Because I felt like one of the boys, he was taking a little bit too long to sand some doors down. I'm like, oh, did that take you 2 hours? And you only did like 1.5 in the 80 grit stage. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, but I can also tell by the way that panel looks, I know just by looking at it that you haven't done it right, because it doesn't look the way that I've done it, and I get mine done half the time. And so again, what you got to do, you can push a bit of pressure on it. It's not the pressure that's the end of the world. So yeah, you definitely can push a bit of pressure on it. And if you get to those corners, just keep it moving. Again, because you got to think of what you're doing. As long as you're moving that paint down evenly, right? You don't want to be digging one bit out, and then when you go to the next spot, you're actually re-sanding the bit that you've already sanded. So, but that's about it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed watching. Hopefully you've been enjoying the extra little bit of effort that I've been putting into many of my videos lately. I feel like I'm back. I feel like it's 2016. I'm reinvigorated to get this channel pumping again. And yeah, if you want to go and support the channel, we've got Gunman Edition Colad spray suits and even a Gunman Edition DV1 coming very soon. It may even be out as of making this video. But yeah, keep an eye on spraygunsdirect.co.uk. Until next time, get out there and paint some shit. Gunman out.